All right, I'm gonna share my screen, and at any point of time, if you like guys feel like talking, just raise your hand. If you have any doubts, you could ask me while I'm also teaching you as well. And just let me know at any point of time if you don't understand anything, if something is difficult to visualize or um, to put in perspective. Just let me know so that we are concept by concept, we are clear and thorough. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and open Spark. Please let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, it's visible.
All right, perfect. Okay, so this is a basic. When you open the tool, this is a very basic tool dashboard, you can say, where you have like some templates that can help you start with. Let's say if you want to make a face filter, like face decoration with a glasses on the eyes. If you want to put on a mask, and then let's say if you don't want a background but you want a custom background, but you use it in front of it. So these are like kind of templates that Spark has already prepared for you, so that it's just like, okay, when you start, every time you don't have to do some repetitive tasks. So not important, we're gonna start with a blank project for now, like to understand the tool. And the blank project, if you click here, it is just going to open a very basic project, and you don't have anything here, there's nothing here. You can see this is a simulator. In simulator, it is how it shows you how it's gonna look in your phone when you load it into your devices. And this is the scene that all the scene objects lie in.
Screen is not properly synced. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can still see the dashboard, the front
Yeah.
first one.
Oh, that's strange. Is it visible now?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're different screens. So
Yes.
all right. So this is the main window. This is the main first thing that you see when you open a blank project. And once you open the blank project, this is your viewport. Viewport is like, which is visible, like everything in a 3D space. Like how does it look? You could, where is your camera? And then, so this is your camera. This small thing is your camera, and what camera sees is your viewport. So this is your viewport basically. All right. And this screen, small screen here, is a simulator, as is how it's going to look when the filter is pushed to your phones. And this is a viewport, this is the simulator, and this is the scene. Okay, so all the objects in this scene are being loaded here right now at the moment. So at the moment there's a device. Okay, so this device, if you see, when I click on device, this entire thing becomes blue, right? So this is my device, and this device has some sub elements, and those elements are my camera, and my camera is this, what camera sees. Okay, my focal distance. Focal distance is a distance between the camera and whatever it sees. So basically, it is set to be 0.5 by default. And these are the lights, and this is direction light. So there are 3 or 4 kinds of light. We'll talk about them in detail in some time. These lights are responsible to light up the scene. Like so, we could control these lights here. Um, this is the scene palette, and when you click on this scene palette, there are some properties which are shown at the right panel, right? So these are the properties that are connected with every element that you're going to put in the scene. So if this device, if you talk about, so there are some options, some properties that we can modify based on our projects, based on our capabilities we want to use. Similarly for camera, similarly for focal distance. And so if you see, this focal distance is something that my camera is, and the distance between my camera and the screen. So whatever do you see this red here? Do you see a red line here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. I think that's someone drawing on the screen.
Okay. Who's drawing on my screen? All right. Cool. Um, that's allowed. All right. So the lights and these are, they have their own properties as well. So you could do basic operations with these things. So this is similar to any other tool that you have used. If you have used Photoshop, if you have worked on other tools, that you kind of put elements. So the operations that you can select two things at once, like if you press Control or Command if you're using Mac. So you could select two things at first and modify their properties, common properties. Um, you could, I think you can't, yeah, you can select all of them at once, like Control, or if you use Shift, you could control just 2 clicks, whatever comes in the between. The last thing is microphone. Microphone is responsible for controlling the mic on Instagram app. So if you disable this mic, then user won't be able to, like, even if they speak, we won't be able to, like, the recording won't have the voice. So usually by default we keep it open. So like if anybody, if in the effect, if somebody wants to share some thoughts, use their voices, so they can use it. There are some properties with it, some preview files. So it is basically used with audio reactive effects. So let's say if I if my voice amplitude is going to change something in my scene, so then I can kind of test it using a live microphone preview, or I can add a test file as well. So these are the options, but we will go in detail. So we just make you familiar with about the scene and the properties. Okay. uh, Now we come at the bottom, which is an asset panel. Okay, so asset panel, as the name suggests, every kind of asset that we are going to add in a project are going to be added here. So for example, uh, let me import some assets, so then we can start from there. Just a minute. Yeah. So we can import these assets from our library, from our computer, and let's say talk about taco time. Okay, so we can import all the textures at once. We can import one by one as well. So let's import two textures. Okay, these two. When we import them, they are they are visible here in the texture tab. Okay, so what we have imported are two images. So these images are texture type. What all kind of assets can we have? They can be a 3D model, they can be a music file, right? The assets can be an animation, the assets can be a JavaScript file. So those all of the assets, like every kind of assets present, which is outside the Spark, and we want to import that in Spark, will be shown here. Okay. So right now, all the images that we imported are under texture. All right. So sorry,
Can we import GIF?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Could you please be louder?
Can we import GIF files?
GIF files? No, we can't import GIF files. So supported files are images. We can't import videos as well. For GIFs, there's another way to do it. It's called PNG sequence, right? So every GIF is made up of some frames which run at a particular frame rate. So let's say if I take 25 frames and run them on uh, 1 frame per second, so I will have that video going on. So I will kind of import that PNG sequence, import those 25 images and run them at particular frame rate to work it as a video. So to import a GIF, you would have to use a tool which converts GIF to PNG sequence. And since you asked it, let me just okay, so there are a lot of tools out there on the internet to do that. But there's this one that I use. So we have to convert from GIF to PNG sequence. So basically that's one. And those PNG sequences is not a different extension. It just one GIF is converted into, let's say, 4 images or 10 images or 25 images based on how lengthy is the GIF
Yes.
is, right? So yeah, so we will talk about all kind of assets. We'll talk about everything, but just for an example, if I click on this texture now, so this panel is always for the properties. When we clicked here, this was showing properties of these things. When we clicked here, this will show properties of this thing, whatever texture we put. So it says this texture name is image background. It is a single kind of texture. So who was this who asked this question? Can I know a name about GIF?
Uh, Divya Shah. Divya.
Hi, Divya. Okay. So Divya,
Yeah.
so you see that the type of this was a single texture. That means that was a single image, but it could be a texture sequence. Okay. That means that it could be a combination of 4 images or 10 images or like that. So when we do that, I will show you how to do that as well.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so we could see now it's kind of asking you, okay, where do you want to go for a sequence and import multiple images, right? Here it will show the file size, the dimensions. This is the recommended size of anything that you import in Spark. You can't go higher than 1024 cross 1024. So this is the resolution. What is a resolution? It's about information about an image, that how much data one pixel is containing. So that decides the quality of the image. So if the image has to be very much detailed, there are like high resolutions. But we have to convert all the images to 1024 cross 1024 or lesser than this. All right, not higher than this. That's not ideal. Um, Color encoding is it's linear. Uh, it's linear. It's sRGB. So basically, this is enhanced RGB channel. So every image is made of 4 channels, which is red, green, and blue. And the 4th channel is the opacity, that is called alpha. So the color encoding is usually, if I put it to sRGB, it's going to change a little bit of colors of the texture, but it won't be shown here. But when we put them into perspective, you'll be able to see that difference, because this is just a preview of what texture we have included. Now there are some more basic stuff, which is compression. So our main problem of making filter right now, like since I started, is that every filter has to be maximum size of 4 MB. It can't go more than that. And Facebook does that because they think that 4 MB is an ideal size to be loaded on every kind of phones in every part of the corner of the world. Because if we live in the cities, right, we have high speed internet. So if we open a filter, loading a 4 MB filter is okay. It's like maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, right? But if you live in a remote area, or if you live a place where internet is not that good, so if you open the filter, which is more than 4 MB, let's say, even if that's 4 MB, it takes a lot of time, right? For them to load 4 MB is a lot. I remember I was in a remote area and I couldn't load Facebook, my profile picture. It was that alt image, like, okay, we can't load it because your internet is not that good. So that is why Facebook has limited this to 4 MB, and you can't go more than that. So if you see here, our file size for this just one file is 4 MB. So even if we kind of play around and make the filter, we can't really upload this on Instagram because they would say like, hey, you can't do that because it's more than 4 MB. So that is why we have compression here, that this compression techniques will reduce this size of the file texture. Okay, so this is provided by Spark, and the automatic is very nice. Like if you put it on automatic, their algorithms would automatically compress it in the best way possible. But there are other options as well. You could do manual compression. You could say like, hey, don't compress them at all. You could do all those things, right? I'm gonna just leave it as it is now because now we're not uploading on Instagram. We're just doing it for learning purpose for now. But these options are manual options are for iOS, for Android, and for all older Android. So like they understand that okay, there are these kind of phones in the world. So let's say if you want to optimize your filter for iOS devices, if you want to optimize your filter for Android devices, then there are some options, some compression techniques that you can use here. These are also some texture based techniques, sampling, low, medium, high. So basically sampling is kind of anti-aliasing, like if there's a texture, how closely they are together, so how closely they are compressed, their pixels are. So it is dependent on that. um, we mostly keep it on low. We don't really change it. I mostly don't. I sometimes do medium for very small textures. Let's say if I have very small textures like 30 by 30 pixels, like my dimension is 30 by 30 pixels or 50 by 50 pixels. So from low binary, I would just go for a medium binary like that. It's not that useful feature, but like if for advanced 3D filters, this can be useful. UV tilting mode and V tilting mode is kind of, let's say this is my screen and my texture size is 100 by 100. Okay, so 100 by 100 would be covering like, let's say this part of the screen. So if I put it on clamp, then this is okay, like it's just gonna end here. But if I put on repeat, then this will be mirrored over the entire scene. Like uh, it will be mirrored like this. It will fill up this space first, then it will fill up the next space, then next space, next space, next space. So that's useful in a lot of games where, like, let's say if you want to repeat a road texture, or like let's say we just create a block of a road and then we want to repeat it again and again, so that like we don't have to create a long line of a texture. So this is useful there. I mean, this is a simplest example that I could find. But I could show you some practical things with it, which will, I think, make more sense later. Yeah, so this was pretty much it. And now we move to the next window, which is called patch editor. Okay. Uh, Maybe let's not go there. Let's add something to our scene. Okay. We've just been talking about, we have not added anything. So now these are the objects, this panel, the scene panel. So we have options here to add some objects. So let's say there are many objects. There are these kind of objects that we can add here. Let's talk about these. This is a face tracker. As the name suggests, face tracker is a tracker which tracks the face. So if you add this face tracker and let's see it in action. Yeah. Do you see that there's this thing came here? It was not earlier. These arrows were not there earlier. And since I've selected it, whatever I select is shown in my viewport. So if I select my ambient light, if I select my direction light, if I select my face tracker, it will show me the position, the transformations, the scales of everything of in the viewport, right? So you see that my face tracker is now, it's moving with the face, right? So it's just that, like it tracks your face wherever it like your face is rotating right now. Your face is uh, rotating right now like that. It's tilting, it's nodding. So it takes all those assumptions. Um, Now we could add a lot of things into this particular object. So it is not like, okay, if you're right clicking on it, then you see add object, you see every object here that you saw here. Okay, so there are two ways to add objects. So you could add objects after clicking here, add object, and all the objects are here. Or you could just click on the particular object and you want a child of it. Like I want to add something which is a child of face tracker. So I would directly click on it, right click on it, and then I'll just add, let's say, a face mesh. Okay. So this is a face mask. Like it is a blank texture, like a checkboard. It has nothing. It has no properties right now. Like there is nothing on it. It's just like a blank thing, like black and white. But we could like now we could do a lot of things with it. We could give it a lot of colors. We could give it a texture. We could kind of manipulate with it. So there are a lot of things that can be done now. For now, just understand the scene that it was part of the face tracker. Okay, so it is tracking the face now, right? The face mesh is actually tracking with my movement of my face, right? What if I don't click on right click on it? What if I directly add object from here? Let's say I don't want to go into the hierarchy. Okay, so understand the hierarchy. Okay, what we did was in face tracker and we added a face mesh. So let's say I add a face mesh outside the face tracker. So if you see, this is outside, this is not inside this. Okay, so that's there, right? It's not tracking, it's stable at one position, correct? So that's something a tracker does. It tracks position, rotation of everything that is a child. It is the child of. I hope that's clear until now. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So there are some other, you could add anything here. Like these are the trackers that you need to understand, like what other kind of trackers are there. So there's a face tracker, there's a plane tracker. A plane tracker would be a tracker that will track a plane. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the face tracker for now. And then, so a plane tracker, just a moment, I'm just gonna find a way to remove this drawing. All right. Okay, so when I added a plane tracker here, similarly, just like a face tracker, it added a yeah, good question, Sriram. So if we compress, that means the quality, we are compromising with the quality. That's correct. But we can always see that, let's say if a resolution is so high that, because we are seeing the image on a phone, it's a very small screen, right? So we don't need very HD high quality images. We can only we can be, we can compromise there. So what if we can just have a texture in 200 300 kb, but it's a good texture. It is like nothing is blurry in the texture. So that ways we could save a lot of memory and utilize that in effect. So I hope that answers your question. It does compromise with the quality, but it does not go so low that it is like pixel or like that. We make sure that it does not go that low. Yeah. All right. Okay. So a plane tracker is it tracks the plane, right? So usually they are used with the back camera. The plane trackers, they're used with the back camera. So so in the simulator, you can kind of switch the front camera to back camera. So you'll see that the entire perspective would get changed. And it is denoted by this plus sign here, that this is the plane, and whatever I put here will be added to this plane, right? Okay, it won't be added to my face, won't be added to my scene. So let's try to add another object. Let's try to add a plane. Okay, a plane is nothing but just a plane. Okay, just a plane, a 2D plane, which can hold some objects. So we'll talk about plane as well just now.
Yeah.
All right, so if you see that this plane now has a plane, this plane tracker has a plane now. So don't get confused about this plane and this plane tracker. Let's add something else. Um, let's add a face mesh here. Okay, that's not face tracker. Okay, so yeah, if we add a face mesh, it's not gonna go there, right? Okay. Okay, so we could add anything in the plane and it will be added to that plane. And how we see using this phone is that we have to turn on our back camera, and to test it here on the simulator, you could use this button WASD like that. But on the phone, you just have to move, like you don't have to use those buttons. But to test it on the simulator, you could use those button WASD. Um, let's talk about some properties that a plane can have, that a face mesh can have. Like some things are pretty similar. So I'm just going to go back to the face tracker to talk about the properties that we can have. Or let's not add a face tracker, just add a plane here. Okay. So this is a plane which does not have anything right now. It does not have a skin right now. It is just a tracker like a face mesh was. Like it is basic denotation of a texture of a object being blank. This object can have a 2D representation of things. Okay, a plane or a rectangle. Those are the 2D representation of a lot of things. Okay. Talk about the properties of this plane. This plane, where does it lie? Which layer does it lie? So layering are is a very important concept. Okay, so please notice, give your attention here. So layerings are, it is actually in every tool where designing is done. So like if you talk about Photoshop, if you talk about Illustrator, they also have layers. Okay, what goes on the top and what goes on the back. So these layerings are important, right? Like if you're drawing a hair, then some hair should go behind the head and some are like on the side and like that, because that's what will make it realistic, right? So at the moment everything is in, so is this scene, there are some layers also that we could navigate to. Okay, so at this moment everything is in just one layer. Everything is just one layer. We're not kind of talking about other, we don't have any new layer that we have introduced yet. So everything I click on, it's just going to show me on that particular layer. So from it starts from the objects under the focal distance. So you know what is a camera, how our eyes sees something is because whatever comes into the focal distance we're able to see it, because it is reflected and it is transmitted, the light is transmitted, reflected back to our lenses. So whatever comes into our focal distance we're able to see it. So that's what this tool also is based on, that whatever comes into the focal distance we're able to see it. Okay. This plane has, so these layers. Okay, we'll talk about these layers now. We could create new layers, but before that, let's talk about the plane's properties so that we could create new layers then. Okay. um, this plane has some properties like position, scale, and rotation. As the name suggests, position is just the position of this. Like if I move it by 0.1, it's going to move like that. uh, Positive x, this is negative x. So this is x. Y, and Z. Um, to navigate in the viewport, you could use your mouse, you could use your keys or the touchpad. If you use control, then you're able to kind of rotate the scene. And if you use alt with the mouse, then you could kind of just displace it in directions. So you'll get familiar with this once you open the tool and like start playing with it. So if you do that +1, -1 like this you can move it with the values, or you could directly go into the viewport, select the thing that you want to move and kind of just drag it down where you want to drag it down. So let's say I want to put this onto my head, right? Like not onto my head, but just like this part of the screen, because this is not actually tracking my head. Cool. So these values, if you see, these values are automatically changing when I'm kind of pushing it down, or I'm pushing it in the right, or like doing in the left, like that. So this is Y direction, this is X direction, right? So if I go change things in Y direction, let's say 0.1, it is going to change into Y direction, which is right. This is Y direction. This is X axis. This is Y axis. But this depth is Z axis. So if I kind of want to change, want to push this into Z direction, like let's say back or front or back or front, like this. So if you see, like if something is far from me, it's going to be smaller. Something is closer to my eye, is going to be bigger. And the only thing changing here is the Z direction, Z coordinate of this. If you check the position here, if I'm moving it, the only thing is changing is the Z direction. You could use these 3 blocks also, like 1, 2, and this, if I, yeah, 3, this, you see this. So this is like moving 2 axes at once. So if I move this one, I'm going to move it in X and Y direction, right? So if you see that values in X and Y are changing altogether, Z is not changing. Similarly, goes with the other axes also. So this is useful for us to make animations. This is useful for us to move objects, and kind of useful in a lot of games, any kind of interaction. Next is scale. XYZ is the similar thing for every kind of transformation. Scale is scaling the object into X direction, scaling in Y direction, scaling in Z direction. So if I want to scale in X direction, it will be just like longer and longer and longer and longer, like that. And if I scale in Y direction, it's going to be, scaling up in the Y direction. So you can take a note of things, that how big something should be and how small something should be. So this would come after practice. Like, okay, if I just put it 2, it's not even covering the space. But if I put 2, it's not even covering the entire scene. So you could definitely think on it, like what is the maximum size? I think if I go 3, then this covers like the entire screen and a little bit beyond it. If I go for like above 5, this would cover the entire scene also. This is a little bit up right now, but the 5 covers the entire scene. This is a 2D plane, as I said. So if you scale it in Z direction, nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna like give it some depth here, because this is a 2D thing, right? So 2D thing, scaling in 2D thing is not going to give you anything. So we always leave it to 1. All right. Did I mention this visibility patch? Okay, so this is like if you put something in the plane, and if you click on it, it's just like a visibility. Do you want to make it visible, or do you want to not make it visible? So it's that visibility. So we could say some logics like make it visible when somebody blink their eyes. So like if I blink, make it visible. So that's where it is used. If I open my eyes, if I close my eyes, let's say show some fake eyes, so I could make this plane as a holder of eyes. All right. So is this clear? Is this is very important? Okay, this transformation, because we are going to do everything here. Like this is kind of very important. So if you have any doubts in this, let me know. Okay. So next is that until now it did not hold anything. This plane had nothing, right? Like let's give it something. Let's give it a skin. So anything is made of some sort of material, right? Like whatever we make it with some sort of material. Some things are made from plastic, something are made from air, which we can't see. Some things are made of iron, some things are made of calcium, and this is a material. This is like considered, like for an example, like something's made of a fabric. So we gave this thing a material that, okay, let's give you a material, let's make something of you. Now we can double click it. This material is added into our asset automatically. So as soon as we added a material here, right, I can remove it. I can delete it from here. What I did was I clicked on the plane, I click here, and I created this material. If you don't want to do that from here, we could also, another way to do it is that I click on add asset here, and it will ask me if I want to create a material. So when you ask me that what all kind of assets we can add are here, these are the kind of assets we can add. So let's say I want to add an asset, a material, which can be applied to my this plane. Okay, so that this plane can be colorful, this plane can hold up an image, or I could play something with it, right? So I added a material here. I said like, hey, material. So it's a good practice to kind of name your planes. So let's say we are trying to make a background or maybe just an image. So image holder. I called it like a plane image holder. Okay. And I added this material, and I'm going to say that, hey, you material, you are my mat underscore image holder. So it is like, we always know like, okay, what kind of material is this? This material is for this plane, and because of this naming convention, we know that this is kind of a material. Now by default, now if we click on here, we see the properties uh, of the asset, right? So we're seeing the properties as we're seeing properties here. Now it has different properties. First of all, now we need to assign it to our image, our plane. So how do we assign it? So when we click on plus, so initially there was no material present in the scene. So it added a new material. But now since we have one material, it's gonna ask us, hey, which material, man? So we say like, hey, mat image holder. Let's say if we had like multiple materials here, like 4 to 5 or 6 materials, then it will show us all the options here. Which material do you want to apply? So we say like, okay, image holder. You see that by default, it gave it as a like a grayish, like a whitish color. And these are the properties that we can play with. Now, whatever changes we make here, they will be applied to our plane because we have kind of assigned it. Is it clear? This transition is clear to everybody? That we created a plane, we created a material, and we assigned it to this. Now, whatever changes that we make in this material are going to be applied to this scene object. Is this clear?
Yes.
All right, perfect. You could go to a material by double clicking on it, or let's say if I'm at this plane and if I want to change, go to this material, I could go in two ways. I could double click here, or I could directly select it here. So let's say I don't remember which material to which. So I try always like to go for like image holder and then double click here. So it automatically takes me there, right? This is the shader type. There are some sort of shader types, like what kind of, this is, let's say, what kind of properties your material should have. Like for an example, um, if you're if you want to boil something, if you want to cook something, so if you want to boil something, then you use a different kind of pot. But if you want to cook something and fry something, you use a different kind of pot. So based on these kind of properties in shaders, we have different shader types. Do we want to affect our object in terms of light, or we want to say that, hey, it doesn't matter what kind of light is coming, it should be black always? Do we want to show reflections, like, hey, my image has to be shiny, and when a light comes on it, it should be reflective? So you have such options here. So it is a flat material where the light does not affect the scene. Like it's going to be flat always. It doesn't matter what angle of light is coming and like that. Standard does affect light. Physically based is you have reflections in it. You can have a metallic kind of feature, like how pots are, the shinier, right? So that kind of physically based. Face paint is to kind of immersed in face. Like if you if you have a like Joker, if you ever seen a Joker face, and then it's like just immersed into the skin. So that kind of material. There's a blended also. The blended is very similar to multiplying two textures. So this like blends. And there's a shader code asset, which is we'll talk about, I think, maybe last session of our journey. It's very intelligent part of Spark AR where you kind of create your own textures using some code, but it is a little advanced and also a different technique that of graphics that Spark has imported into this tool, which is going to be useful. So that is also kind of a shader type that we can use. Flat is very important because most of the time you will be using flat only. So by default, it adds a standard one. So if you see, like when it was standard, there was a different color on it, but when it became flat, it became super white. Like because there was like it said like no lighting is affecting. It said like I'm going to be white, no matter where I am, I'm going to be white. So that is why it became white. And now if I change the color of this thing, so it is going to be applied here. Okay. Okay, let's go with this. We could apply a texture here. Let's say I want to apply, we have these textures here. If I try to select it, it will show me options of existing textures and I can import some textures. So if I say like this texture, it is applied here, right? This texture was green and there were some lines like this. And but we applied an overlay color on it. So that is why it is different color. So I can set it to white again and you'll have, the image is applied here. Okay. Now you can, adjust kind of the scaling, let's say like this. And that could be a background now. And if your user comes forward to it, it could be a background. But that's a different technique, how to make yourself in front of this image. But is this clear? Did this make sense now? If you go to the video and then how she was doing what she was doing, would it make sense? Right? Yeah, you can reply for these in the chats. Okay, cool. um, this was it, and let's try to add something else. Like this was pretty much it. Like this properties. Oh yeah, we are still left with some. Okay, there are environments. Like what kind of environment texture is you can use some environment texture. Environment texture is it's kind of an SDRI file, which is what if you were in a forest, what if you were in an office setting, what if you were in a what if you're in Rajasthan, what if you were in a different set of place where lighting is different, ambience is different. Because if there's a green if there are trees, if there are lake there, it has a different light, right? But if there's a desert there's a different light, different setup. If you're in office, they have different lights. So these environments, these images are those that is the environment. We could always import a texture here, or we could just say color as well. So let's say by default, if we have this pink color, we could have white color. So this is like a particular applied in a very uniformly, because our flat material does not react to lights, right? So this is applied uniformly. It does not depend on the angle. If I rotate it, or like if I move, if this object moves, it is not going to matter. For now, we don't have to apply these lights because in flat materials, we don't really need them most of the time. We mostly use our environment lights in standard materials or physically based materials, like physically based material or standard materials. Mostly flat materials do not need to be applied in environment light. Okay, this is important. Okay, alpha is very important. Alpha is something which is I'll give you an example. Okay, so if I have a torch in my hand, torch is, everybody knows the flashlight, right? Flashlight. And if I have a flashlight in my hand and if I try to project it on a wall, so I see that whatever light goes, it is on the wall, right? But what if I put my hand here? Then light won't go through. I won't see anything on the wall. So this is a black alpha. Like I blocked the entire light, so there is no passing alpha. So this is zero. The alpha is zero because nothing is going through it. But what if I open my fingers like this? So if I open my fingers like this, there would be some light would get through it. So I would see shadow of my hand on the wall. So this is a custom alpha, that what are you projecting, what are you letting go, what are you allowing to be projected on your screen is your alpha, and you can control it. So this alpha is always from 0 to 1. It is value, numerical value is always from 0 to 1. It is 0 when it is completely blocked, and it is 1 when it is maximum. All right. Also that I gave an example of my hand, right? So if that light, if that light is my this background, this texture is that light, and my hand is my alpha, then the image that I get would be different. Okay, so let's say if I have alpha as the second texture that I have here, so if I put it here, do you see that what happened? Did you just see what happened? I said like, hey, this image is my alpha. So just project something, project the entire this texture only where this thing is there. Okay, so I put this image into the alpha, and this became a very different image. Now it is not a rectangle or a plane anymore. It is a plane, but it's not just like straight lines. It is a shape that I just gave it to.
Can you show that again? Actually,
Sure. All right. So we remove the alpha from the material. We remove the alpha from the material right now. It does not have any alpha. Okay.
yes.
So if I enable this alpha and remove this also. So first of all, to check this alpha, like, okay, I want to use alpha. Initially, I said like, I don't want to use alpha, but I want to use alpha. And I want to say that my alpha should be a texture, which is my PNG wheel, which is my PNG wheel. This is my PNG wheel.
Okay.
Right. You could have any image texture. We just took it for an example. We can have custom alphas. We could do a lot of things with that. So we took that image here, and this entire thing just changed into a different shape. What if I invert it? So if I invert it, it said that, okay, when I was having that torch, and I said that, okay, light was going through it. All right. But what if I kind of invert this, that whatever black, I make the black white and I make white the black. All right. So let's say instead of light source being this is the light source. Maybe not the right example, but yeah. So inverting is just converting the blacks to white and whites to black. So that's how we see things in graphics. Okay. The alpha, this was completely black, and this was partially black. The black was not visible, only whites were visible. These were whites, and these were blacks. So anything which was stopping our alpha to be printed was black. So now this thing is black, but these gaps are white. So if we invert it, it becomes the ulta. It becomes the opposite. Okay. So that is why we have this inversion here. So if we do this, if you see that this has just made a hole in the image, hole which represents this, like this is This is what it does. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Tiling options. Let's just leave it for now. It just like kind of you can move, you can stretch your texture, those things, but it is a little bit advanced, I would say. I would like to take an example and maybe explain this in our future lectures where we are kind of working with the patch editor, which we have not yet introduced. So basically, this is kind of a partition of a texture. Right now, we say like, okay, tile. So how the tile works, right? Tiles works in on the floor or anywhere the tiling system is. So is this pretty much similar if I make it to 2 and 2? So this is like a 1 and 1 was like four tiles. 1 and 1 was one tile, just one into one tiles. If I do 2 and 2, these are four tiles. So if I have this texture, I can have it four times in the entire texture that is present. So just to make it more clear. Okay. How many of you have completely understood what I just did? And I would really like if somebody can volunteer and explain me, because there's nothing new that I did. I kind of explained you as well. So I would really love it if somebody could try. It's not necessary that you would be right, but if you try it, that would make me happy. Anybody has an explanation? Himanshu? Divya, do you want to try?
But your voice is breaking in mine. So
Yeah.
can you tell me what it is?
Yeah, Divya. So we just had one texture.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had just one texture, and now we have four textures, which are completely copied from one another. So did you understand this? How this happened?
Yes.
Okay.
That mirror and yeah. Wait.
Tell me, where do I go? What do I open? If you want to see something on the screen.
Can you open that image? Per one. Okay. Image background. Yes. Repeat. UV tilting repeat. Yes.
Yeah. So the tiling modes, right? The tiling mode that I told you, like
Tiling.
it could be repeated, right? So we put that on repeat, and we also said that, hey, whenever you tile, let's do it 2 x 2, right? 2 x 2, which means four tiles. What if I do 3 x 3? See, makes sense. If I do 4 x 4, if I do 5 x 5. So basically, what I'm doing here is that dividing my UV is my XY tile, the entire texture, into a tiling option, which is given by default. This is 1 by 1. So 1 into 1, like X and Y. 1 into 1 is 1. So that is why we see just one image. And if we have 2 x 2, then this will be divided into four tiles. And if we clamp it, then we will only see one texture and other would be blank. So let's say if we have 3 x 3, right? So we have three lines here and three lines here. What if I have 3 x 4? It will be 3 times in X, 4 times in Y. If I have 1 x 4, this texture would be like this. Okay. So You understand this, right? Now it's better.
Yes.
Offsetting is kind of an offset into X direction and Y direction. Like, let's say I don't want to start here. I want to start X direction, maybe 2 point later on or 4 point later on.
Yeah.
Just one more thing about this is that if I put it like 3 x 3, and if I don't put my textures on repeat, both of them, you can select both the textures at once. As I told you, as we do here as well, you can select two textures at once and change the properties which are similar. So these are similar properties, repeat. If I clamp it, okay, if I clamp it, then it won't be repeating. It will be just one texture. This could be useful in making patterns for backgrounds. This could be useful in making, um, yeah, possibly for patterns and maybe some games as well. Yeah. So you see that now we have given them the idea of like, hey, make us a tile of 3 x 3, but we didn't say that, hey, where is the texture? So right now it is missing that texture. It is saying that 3 x 3, the first thing is started. The image started at 3 x 3. It converted the size and everything for three such spaces, but it just didn't work because we don't have a texture on repeat. So it is missing this texture. So it is just extending the boundaries. This was the original texture. And it is just extending those boundaries, right? Yeah. All right. Is this clear?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Sriram.
Sir, I have a doubt that when you add the second image, how did you make it invisible, sir? Can you explain it again, that alone?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
It is not invisible. It is kind of because alpha is always black and white. It doesn't matter what color this image is. Okay, this image is colorful right now. I know, right? It is colorful, but alpha is always 0 or 1. It is always black or white. So it doesn't matter what color this image has. If I pass this image to my alpha as an alpha, then it will be considered as an outline of this. This would take any kind of color as white color or a black color or no color as a white color. Like, sorry, it would take any color as a white color, any color as a black color, and no color as a white color. So this alpha, I just put. So I was here earlier. So let me just turn off the tiles for now. Okay, this was our original texture. I wanted to put some alpha on it. So this was my original texture. I wanted to put some alpha on it. So I applied an image, right? Sriram, until here you're clear?
Yes, sir.
Then I tried to invert it. I said like, okay, this is my original texture, and then print me the texture of it where you have this shape. So it printed me that shape out of this texture. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then I said like, okay, not this, but the other part of it. Just invert this. Don't give me this texture, but give me everything else. So it is almost like asking, hey, give me 0.2 rupees out of 1 rupee. But then you said, no, I want the other half. I want the 80%. Give me 0.8 rupees, not 0.2 rupees. So I said, hey, invert this. So we inverted that, right? So initially, the other part here of the rectangle became transparent, no color, correct? That is how it is transparent. That is how we're not seeing here anything. Like right now we see the colors and everything here. If I put an alpha, this became transparent, the
Yes, sir.
surrounding. correct? If I say like, okay, don't make this transparent, make the inside transparent and give colors to this. So if I invert this, everywhere, see the outlines, it became a different shape. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next, let's go to the blend modes. These are quite important, actually very important blend modes. The way things are blended with the textures over each other. Mostly, it has to do a lot of things about the texture. So by default, it is set to alpha, and alpha is something that we discussed in detail. And it says that okay, blend mode is alpha, like change it according to the alpha. But we can have different kind of blend modes. Let's say I have a add mode. So add is more like a transparent thing, which just adds the layer on it, like just emerges. Not the right word. Wait. So adding, I think it's more to do with the light, like how things are blended together. So instead of overlaying, we just added it. Instead of um, putting the entire texture, we kind of also take in account what is there in the back. So right now it is not completely blocking what is there in the back, right? We can still see some things of my face here. So I'm going to remove this alpha. You see, you can still see my face, my something, there will be something in the background. So that is the blend mode. If I go back to the alpha, you won't be able to see what is in the background. So that's where, like, if you want to include some sort of transparency, then you can have add. It is mostly used where you want some sort of glow, where you want some sort of neon lights like that. So those are like blend modes where you want to use add mode. Okay. Then we have associative alpha. Associative alpha is a thing where if you have many colors in one image, let's say if you have like these, every boundary is a different color, like very, very different color. And then you're switching among them very frequently. Then basically how the boundary converts from one color to another color is like associative alpha. We will study this in detail with an example later on, because it is very hard to visualize right now, associative alpha. So I'll prepare an example for this. Okay, subtract is basically subtracts the colors, pretty similar to what we did with that alpha, but here it takes account in all the colors. It's not just dependent on black and white. Subtracting is, think of a color wheel, like red, green, blue, orange, all the colors. And what happens when you add, we just said like, what is add red or blue. What happens if you add red and blue? Becomes like blackish, right? So this is more like a color class. You could kind of go through some sources online where you can see what color makes what color, like how the RGB is made. So if you red and green would give you some color like that. So this is similar to that concept. Like it will just subtract colors. So if you see that my hand has a different light on it, so it's a different color. If I remove my hand, it's a black t-shirt, so it's a different color here. So yeah, that's the subtraction of the color overlay. Multiply is multiplying the color. It just gives that screen. If I multiply this, my everything becomes green. And then replacing um, is that it doesn't matter what kind of opacity is. It's always going to be like this. Like if I change this opacity now, it's not going to change in the main screen. In the viewport, you may see some things, but it's not going to change the main things. But if I had other materials, this opacity is affected. This opacity is affected for all kind of materials except the replace. All right, it is affected. But for replace, it doesn't matter what opacity is. It's going to say that I'm going to replace everything that comes behind me. All right. Uh, Double-sided is to check if you want to take account the back side of the texture. So right now we see things in the front, but okay, wait. So yeah, right now we see in the front, but we don't see in the back. Okay, but if you put it double-sided, if you check the double-sided, you're gonna see the things in the back also. All right, it is useful where something is rotating. You know, like if you rotate something, then you want to see the both sides. You can use this thing. Then there is alpha test. It is useful. Okay. I mean, you would like to use it in some examples, and I've created something, some interesting stuff with this alpha cutoff. It is basically, think of it that if something is less than a particular value, if my alpha is less than some particular value, then I'll say like, hey, don't show it, don't show this to me. So like if I say, if my, yeah, so here is like, we don't have any particular things, any curves. This is basically used with 3D textures, with 3D models and like that. So if we say that, hey, if my something is behind something, so I don't show me if the alpha is not enough. If it is not clear enough, then don't show me, hide it. And I don't want to be confused. I don't want my customers get confused. So this will also we'll talk about with an example. For now, it's not that much useful. It is right now toggling the visibility at 100% because this is completely, there's nothing, it's very simple plain image. So that is why we don't have to use it here. This is the most beautiful part of any object that we add, is the depth test, is the right to depth, or basically depth. We have depth in the screen. So if something is behind something, the depth would take it in account, like how deep is it, how far is it. So if I have these unchecked, this means that it doesn't bother about the anything else. So let's say if I want to add another image. So now we talk about an example. We'll discuss everything that we've uh, discussed after taking the last example. That is with the alpha one. If I duplicate it, all right, you can just right click and just click on duplicate. It's just gonna duplicate the thing. Image holder, let's say 1, and this is image holder. We call it image holder 2. This is image holder 1. Now, if I see both of them have the same material, right? We don't have a material. So can I duplicate it as well? Yeah, sure, why not? So I go here and I click on duplicate. And if I say I call it mat1, I'm just changing the names, okay? Nothing fancy here. And don't want to be replacing things. Go back to alpha mode. Now my image 1, holder 1 is assigned to image holder 1. Image 2 is assigned to 1 as well. So we want to change it to image holder 2. All right. Also, it has the same texture. So I want to change this texture to this. All right. So if you understand now, there are two planes. Okay. This is plane number 1, and plane number 2. If I move plane number 1 above, you will see things in perspective. This is plane number 2. This is here. You can always control Z, control Y, just like any other tool you do, and also control Y for redo things. All right. Now we have two planes, two materials. Every material has different properties. Let's say property of this is added to alpha mode. Let's say we want to add mode. So it's like a different texture here. What if we subtracted? Ooh, different colors, right? Based on the background, there's a different color. Replacing's not gonna change. Okay, replacing, yeah. So if you replace it, so see, replacing is so whatever I can't see what is there in the background. Okay, because this texture was until here only. Okay, but there was some things which were transparent, correct? There were some things which were transparent. So it hid them. It replaced them with a black color. So that is why the replace thing is only used where you don't want to care about what's in the background. So if you see, if I go back and move it up, it is still there, but I can't see it because of this black thing came on. All right. I hope that's clear. I hope, is there any problem in this? All right. Yep. Yes, AK. Okay. I just redo things so that we are at the initial stage. Now I can change the properties of these things into, like, if I select them together and like I want to change things. So I said like, okay, I want to consider the depth of these. And now let's talk about the layers. I have two elements now. And these two elements is, okay. Whatever comes, this is the hierarchy, understand the hierarchy, okay? Whatever comes first from the bottom, here first from the bottom is my microphone. So microphone is the first thing that loads when a filter loads. All right. Then is my image number 2. Then is my holder 1. So what if I move this image to above this? It goes in the background. Like this is rendered first. This is called rendering, like how the scene is rendered. So if I take it, bring it back, notice the names of this. Like earlier, 1 was on the top and then 2 was on the bottom. But this is opposite. The bottom loads first, then the top loads later. So this is loading first as in on the top, and then it is rendering the other holder 2. So that is why we have this. So what if I want to, what if my 2 was on the back and 1 was on the front? So what should I do to make it in the front without actually changing the hierarchy? Like now I know that it is in the background, but is there any way to do it where the layers come in the picture? Okay. So image 1 is our green. Yeah. So let's call this green as a layer 0. Okay. And this should be layer 0. And let's call the one with number layer number to some other layer. So let's gonna rename it. I'm gonna call this one as a layer 1. So this is our holder 1, which is green. Yeah, this is green. Let's call it flower holder 2. So if I see image holder 1 is my green holder 1 and my image is flower holder 2. So when it comes to layers, the top loads first and the bottom loads later. So it is opposite now. It is opposite to the how it was working in the scenes. Is there any doubts in this? Like in the scene hierarchy, we go top to bottom. Sorry, bottom to top. In the scene hierarchy, we go bottom to top. In the layer hierarchy, we go top to bottom. All right. So if I put my flower on the top, it should be visible. Understood? Now, no matter what I do in my scene, the layer would always dominate. It will be like whatever you do in the scene, if I change things here, it will be dominating. It will be overwriting whatever I do here. So if I have done this right now, I say that my flower comes first, then flower comes first. It is like nobody's can change it. So if I like, even if I change this order, it is not going to affect the scene. It is going to be the same. All right. Is this understood? Ask away any doubts. If you want to repeat something, if you want to, like how this worked, or because this is very important. You're gonna like play around it a lot. You will have a lot of confusion in it. So yeah. Is this clear?
Yes.
All right, perfect. You can write down in the chats also, so I can know that who is responding, who's not. Nobody's responding except Divya, Sriram, and Pratmesh. All right. I think we've talked about layers and cool. Thank you, Sriram. There are target trackers as well. Target trackers that you can add, just similar to plain tracker, how they come into the scene. Like they will be added and we'll be adding some things on it. Um, but they always have the target trackers are the effects which are which tracks a target. So let's say if I have an image of some things, I noticed that Spark can track your hand. Like if you take an image of your palms and if you show your camera and ask it to like recognize my palm, it will recognize it and it will say like, yeah, your palm is found. But there's a way like you have to build it again, of course. So except that there are some sort of objects that we're going to talk about. Null object. We'll talk about target tracker effects in detail. There's an entire session planned for it. Also entire session planned for some face tracking effects. But today is basically, we just want to get familiar with the tool so that you can try out your assignment on the first session that we have already gone through. And when you do the assignments, you will be like thorough with a lot of things. I think you will be able to make your first filter completely. Like maybe next time we meet and you will have like a lot of things to show me as well. So I'll be really really proud to see your work, give you suggestions where you're doing some mistakes, appreciate you if you do something good. So that would like really make me happy if you try out your homework as well after this. I have just added a null object in the scene. A null object is nothing but just a null object. It's like it holds nothing. You can't see it. Like it's just air. So it is just added with all the transformations here. Okay. So why a null object is being used is kind of to, if I have to move these images together and I have to select them, I can't give them a position because they are at a different position, right? Everything is a different position. Like this is at some y direction, y 0.12, and this is y 0.1188. So I can't select them together and kind of keep this configuration and move them. Like if I move this would be a different thing. So what I do is that I select these, both of them, and put them inside this null object. Now this null object is just one entity. All right. So I can move this as together now. Like this becomes one group. So consider this is like a grouping thing. Like, okay, if you want to group things, we will put them into the null object and then we'll move them together. Now I can like scale this in proportion, like scale them together. We could do some things with these. Yeah. All right. And I hope null objects is clear. Null object is, did we talk about the rotation? We did not talk about the rotation yet. Okay. So rotation is nothing but just like transformation, how we were moving the position and the scales. We could also rotate things. So let's say if I want to rotate this null object like this, yeah, we could kind of give it a rotation. So make sure that this is like a 2D image, right? So if I completely make it perpendicular, I won't be able to see it. Like, oh wow. Yeah. What's your question, Sriram? Do you want to explain it? Is there any eraser to erase particular parts? So you mean to say that, do you want to erase some things? Like let's say erase some things in the texture. Is that your question? Okay, so there is no eraser or eraser kind of thing because this is not a painting tool. But yeah, you could make your own painters. You could make your own alphas to make that erase. Um, for an example, like how we did with this texture when we kind of gave this an alpha and like inverted this. Um, okay, I'm just making some adjustments here, like moving it here and moving it here. Yeah. Does that answer your question? You can't erase things. You can always create custom alphas like this. Was an alpha that we projected on to a texture. So we erased the part that we did not want it to include, and we printed the rest of the part. Again, this was just an alpha that we did, and then you could do that for other textures as well. Now, all right. Important thing. There are some sort of segmentations that we have. Segmentations are like what kind of segments you want to saturate in the scene. So if it is a person segmentation, that means that whatever your camera is looking at, you want to take out the um, person out of it and print that onto the scene. All right. So let's do that. That's the most interesting part. Okay, so let's take in the rectangle. Let's hide it. Whatever we made, we just hide the entire thing at once, because if we hide these things, like if I hide the parent, you will hide the child, obviously. Okay, so if you hide one, you will be hiding one. If you hide, yeah, so one by one you will be hiding that. But if you hide the entire holder, you will be hiding the entire thing at once. All right, let's add a rectangle. If you directly add a rectangle, it will automatically add a canvas. So first we add a canvas logically. The canvas is this entire area that has screen covers. Okay, and then we add another rectangle to it. Now, by default, this rectangle is 100 by 100, but we want to make sure that this goes to the X direction, goes to the Y direction, also covers the entire thing. So what we do is when we go to the properties and we say that make it visible, width to 100%, fill width, fill height. So this is earlier it was 100 pixels, high by 100 pixels. Right now it is 100% and 100%. All right. We want to give it a material. Let's say the material is our you can give a material to kind of this image background. No, not yeah, but that has an alpha to it. So right now our entire background becomes the entire image becomes a background, right? Kind of background, but we want the person to come in front of it. Okay, so how do we do that? If you go to this camera, you can take out some things. First, the camera extraction, like whatever the camera sees as a texture, we kind of extract it. So as soon as we click on extraction, this comes into the texture, camera texture. Okay, same, we want to do this for as a person also. So personal segmentation. Don't worry about hair and skin. We'll do it in later part. Let's do it for the person segmentation. So there are three kinds of segmentation in Spark AR until now. Person segmentation, this segments the entire person. Hair segmentation, where it segments the hair of anybody. Somebody has long hair, somebody has short hair. It kind of segments them entirely. Segmenting is kind of giving you that alpha that we were doing with the flashlight, right? So basically it detected a person as an alpha. So wherever the person moves, that alpha moves. So that is a lot of machine learning models go behind it. and that's how it is being created. Then this skin segmentation, but we don't want skin segmentation. We just want person segmentation. The skin segmentation is that if you want to change color of somebody's skin, which is a racial thing, but yeah, if you want to do that. All right. Now we have both the textures here. Let's see if we could bring it back. And okay, I think it might be confusing if I'm using the same material. So basically I'm using the same material right now. If you notice, because I can use the same material to different parts, different things. And yeah, I can use the same material to different things, different objects. I can use same material to every object if I want. So this is interchangeable. Like we could do that to save sizes or like that. So easier trick to bring the person in the background together is to decrease the opacity, but we don't want that. We want this to be like the background, the user to come in front. So let's have another. So this was our background. We call it a background. All right, this is a background, and I'm going to duplicate it. Please notice the process. I'm going to duplicate it and call it a matte background, maybe BG. And it's the same material because I just copied it. It's not going to change anything, but just like for a clear representation, what goes where, we have done that. Let's say we now want to add another rectangle, which is going to hold our user, which is going to be us in the scheme right now, me. So we made it big, simple steps, make it like live to full screen. We add a material and we name it like, hey, matte user, and we make it flat. We want to give it a texture. What we want to do is this camera texture. This like whatever my camera sees should be here. So this is my camera texture. Like whatever my camera is looking at is visible here. Now you notice that the user is coming, but the background is not coming at all. Why is that? Because, can anybody answer that? Why am I not seeing the background?
Background layer is upper than the user.
Yes, definitely. And they both lies in the same layer. So that is why
Yes.
if they're in the same layer, the scene hierarchy would be like from bottom to top. So user first, then the background. So if I put the user on the top, I won't see the background. I won't see the user, sorry. I will just see the background. Yeah, this is clear, right? So that is why we kind of want to go with the user, and we have said that okay, the camera texture is this. Now I want to kind of make you familiar with something. I'm going to hide the background for now. I want to show you the what is the segmentation mask. So alpha is a mask, like what the alpha flash was the mask. So this is also a mask. So instead of seeing the user entire thing, what if I do the camera texture? So you see that wherever I am in this scene, it is kind of painted me black, right? So this is says that, okay, this guy, like, don't print him. This is right now. So if this becomes my alpha, and my camera texture becomes my camera texture, like this texture become my camera texture. So what I'm going to see is either this person or the rest of the area. Like we can segment it. Either I will see myself, or if I invert it, I will see the background. So I'm going back to the camera texture. Then I'm going to the alpha and I'm going to enable this background. And going back to the user, what I did was camera texture, enable the alpha, and giving it a texture as segmentation section. So now my body is segmented. Don't worry about these outlines, is probably because of the lights, and but when it comes to the phone, it is quite clear and quite good. And also you could adjust these edges a little bit, mask size of segmentation a little bit, not too much, because if you adjust it too much, it's gonna see through the background. Is this clear? The concept is clear, right? Anybody? Any doubts? Do you want it to repeat, or I can repeat it because I was talking about other things also in the middle. So if you want to go through the process again, I can go it quickly. Sriram? It's clear?
Yes, sir. Could you please just repeat the process?
Yeah, sure, Rupu. Okay, so I'm going to delete both of these things. I'm going to delete these things as well. Let's delete everything. Delete these also. Okay, my main goal right now is to have myself in front of a particular background. So what I do is I need to have a rectangle to hold my camera texture. So my first thing is that I add a rectangle. So I add a rectangle, and this rectangle is going to be my background. So I call it BG. And I just don't want it here. I want it entire screen. So I want to go into the fill weights and fill height. All right. And when I do that, now next thing is to add a material. So I click on this. There's a default material added. I double click on it, or you can double click here as well. Rename the material as matte.bg. I'm asked it to flat. Add a texture. Since it is my background, I'm going to add a background texture, and then nothing else. Next is to add another rectangle in this same canvas, which could be my user. And this would also be 100% width, 100% height. And I want to add a material to it, which could be material matte underscore user. This would be flat as well. What I did was I wanted two things, my camera texture and my personal segmentation texture. So I click on my camera. You can delete them again. We can import it. I clicked on the camera. All right, device, camera. This camera will give you the camera extraction. If you plus on it, it will come here. You can rename it to cam text as well, so you'll remember. Then go back, segmentation, go to the personal segmentation. And we can also rename this to like a person seg. All right. Then I went back to my user and my material. I said, hey, my texture should be my camera texture. Now I'm visible. So I don't want entire camera texture to be visible. I want my body to be visible. So what if how I passed my fingers to the light, then the image was my fingers only. So what if I put myself in front of the light? So I will see a silhouette of mine in there, right? So, but it is like, that was for that example, but this is, yeah, you will see that person in front. And so on the background, it will be transparent where my body is. Make sense? All right. Okay, I think we are over 15 minutes for today, but I hope it was interesting and we've learned something today. Maybe next time we'll quickly talk about lights in the system, speakers as well, or I'll share the agenda as well in the chat on the WhatsApp. But make sure next time you come, you go through the videos that will be shared with you. No matter you understand it or not, you should definitely try it out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rufal. Thank you, Rufal. I'm glad you really like it. So what you do is that you open the video on the, I think it's a YouTube link. So open in the video in the browser and open the Spark here at the side. and whatever the tutor is doing, whatever he or she is doing, try to replicate it, try to hear it, and try to replicate it, like whatever they're doing. That's how I learned it. I learned it at the start. That's how I started. I found some YouTube tutorials, and I promise you that that was the time when there were not many tutorials. Some tutorials were in a different language, not even English. They were in Portuguese or like. So I would try to like, I don't know, blah blah blah, but I'll try to focus like what is going where. So it gives you a perspective. It makes you practice the tool, makes you familiar with it, and it only took me 20 days to learn this tool very much, that I was able to make my own filter for my client in 20 days. So you can do that as well. You can definitely prepare yourself, participate in the hackathon, and it won't take much time to kind of get used to this tool. But you have to try. You should try. Those tutorials are really good. The Facebook team has given really nice. So that would be informative as well. And then, so what happens is that you will have doubts. So when you have doubts, you can ask me, else you won't be able to ask them later on, like, but right now, if you have those doubts, you can ask me and I can clarify. Yeah. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, let me know. Meanwhile, I'm just preparing your homework. What do you have to do for the next one?
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sir, what is a sprite sheet? I can find in there.
Yeah, sprite sheet. Okay, so this is a type of a texture. Sprite sheet is a type of a texture where um, do we have a drawing, something like we draw on this, like we can't draw. So sprite sheet is we can draw. Yeah. So consider this is a sheet. Okay, you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the drawing. Okay, so what people do with that, like, hey, what if I am designing a game and there are like 50 elements in the 50 small elements. So do I like import all the images, 50 images, and then assign them different materials and like one by one do it? So it's like a longer process. So Facebook was intelligent. They thought like, okay, sprite sheet, something have been on the internet for a while. So sprite sheet are like this. They will assign the pixels of this image to different images. Like one image could contain lot of information about different images. So this could be a 3 by 4 or 4 by 3 or some kind of image. And these sprite sheet that is the sprite sheet. Like it could contain these pixels as an images. So if I have to access image number this, like if I want to access this one image, so my consider this is array. This is like a 4x4
Yeah.
array. Okay. So if I want to access this, it will be at 2,2. And this will be 3,3. This will be 1,3. So these images could be accessed in that way. So that's one way of doing things. Not necessary that you have to go for a sprite sheets, but some projects are it's good to have. For some projects, it's good to have sprite sheets. For some projects, it's good to have texture sequence. For some projects, it's different than like single text is enough. So it is on the convenience. And if you're a designer, if you like to design, make things optimized, then these are some methods that you can use. But again, these are not so much important, and that you have to use it. But yeah, you want to optimize later on, you want to learn new things. Yeah, these are good things to try on. For an example, um, let's say if you want to show some digits, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0 10 digits, right? These 10 digit can give you any kind of number: 3 digit, 2 digit, 4 digit, 5 digit. But in Spark, if you want to do that, if you want to show your score or something in terms of images, then what you will do is that you will kind of create one sprite sheet like this, and you will create 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you created one array. Your first is 0 image, 1 image. So you put your images like this. So that is an intelligent thing to do if you want to do that. So that is why sprite sheets are important. So because in some mathematical things they are important in some sort of. So this is just a convenience for you to kind of use into Spark AR, use your texture into Spark AR. Understood?
Yes, sir. Actually, I want to put animation background. So I saw the video on the YouTube, but I can't do that. They use sprite sheet for that. Convert your GIF into sprite sheet, and then they include.
Yeah, that can be done. So basically, they will be like going through arrays. You kind of um, maybe turn on loop on animation on the number that your image is selecting. So 4 by 4, or so let's say if you were 1 3 1 4 2 3, keep changing, that comes like an animation. But again, there are easier way would be sprite sheet. To sprite sheet will be texture sequence, but if you want to save a lot of size, then yeah, sprite sheet is a much better option. But we'll talk about this as well. Maybe prepare that filter if you have learned that. Maybe next time you could show everybody here, and we can see
Yeah,
over.
I'm on working on that, so I can like.
Okay,
And
okay.
is there any other way to put animation and animated GIF in the background or something?
Yeah, texture sequence. Have you tried the texture sequence?
Okay. No, I
Yeah.
don't know about
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So texture sequence, I think when we started, we discussed about this. So texture sequence is basically number of frames that you put a video into. So a GIF is converted into some number of frames, and those are, so basically, let's say I'm like this right now. I take one picture like this. I take one picture like this, then this, then this, then this,
Yeah, frame by frame. Yeah,
frame by frame. So I took
yeah,
12 pictures. Now, if I put 12 pictures into like point in every 1 second, if I play them, it will be a video, right?
yes.
From a video. So that is a texture sequence. That is a PNG sequence. So basically, you do that based on number of frames, but there are limitations. You can't go so many frames. You can't really import videos and keep working on videos here. So, but if there's a small thing, there's a small animation, you could do that. I
Yeah.
shared a link here in the chat. You may want to copy it. I can reshare it again, so that's important. It's a good tool to kind of.
Is that GIF?
Yeah, just Google it, like, hey, convert
Yeah, yeah.
GIF into a PNG sequence. You will find so many number of tools, like
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Or is there any frame like we can put 10 frames or 20 frames in the texture frequency? Is there
Yeah,
any
so
limit? Yeah.
yeah, so basically, the link that I shared in the chat, that website is super nice, because those frames is going to depend, going to adjust the the resolution. You can adjust the how fast is the animation is going. So let me show you quickly if you want to see it here.
Can I share a GIF?
You want to share a GIF?
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Let me share. Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, anybody else has a doubt, or
Okay. I will upload the chat box.
11 MBs? Wow.
Actually, I have created that, so I don't know the size and all.
No worries, but it's important. It's good that you mentioned it because it's kind of a process that you should know. And once you know the process, I think it's easier to understand. And it is nothing superficial. It is nothing that some class or would teach you. This is something just over the internet, so we could like just talk about it.
Yeah.
So you have like 41 frames here. Cool.
I don't measure that. It's around 60 seconds or something like that.
Okay. So what's your name? Divya, right?
Divya, yes.
Yeah, Divya has shared an GIF with us. If you try to import this GIF into a scene, it won't allow us to do that. So yeah, this was the GIF that he shared, one.gif, but GIFs are not allowed. So what do we do? How do we bring it here? So I'm going to stop my screen, sharing my screen, and share another tab. What are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
What is visible is a Google search.
Yeah. It's Google search. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do is that GIF to PNG sequence. Okay, and there's this ease at GIF as is okay tool. It's a good tool. I mean, everything comes pretty handy here. I just have to upload my GIF here. That GIF one, and once it is uploaded, just click on upload once like. So if you see that this GIF has these functions here, like not functions, like these animations that there are some firecrackers fires which are at the back of this temple. What we are doing here, we are using the split function here, like to split into frames, but there are so many things that you would do with it. What I want to do essentially is that width is 608, height is 1080. Maybe I would like to do, you can output in JPG, PNG, any format you like. This is not a problem. Like, but PNG has more information than JPG. And PNG, you want to use it when you want things transparent. But here is like, there's nothing I can see which we want transparent. So we would definitely go for JPG. And split to frames. So if you see, they have done it for like 41 frames, I guess. I'm just scrolling. So we can download them as zip, but we can also optimize it before we download it. So let's try to do that, because I think this is going to be super large, because the GIF was 11 MB. So PNG sequence is going to be super larger than this.
Yeah.
I click on optimize, and I want to optimize this to, let's say, I want to compress this first of all. So 30 is light compression, 200 is heavy compression. I'm going to go in the middle, maybe give me a 150 of compression. We are just trying it out. So it's not necessarily that we kind of find a good combination here, but we try it out here. I'll tell you other ways to do that. And if I drop every second frame, if I say like every second frame, don't count it. So out of 41, if I drop every second frame, I'll be having just 20 frames. If I drop every third frame, that means I take 1, 2, don't take 3, take 4, 5, don't take 6, take 7, 8, don't take 9. So this is like a difference. So let's say, just to be able to make it important part. This is our optimized image. You see, this is 634 KB now. and better than earlier. Now we want to kind of split it and give me JPGs, split to frames. So basically, just a tool that we have used to kind of convert to PNG sequence. Now I want to download the frames as zip file. So this is downloaded at my PC. I have extracted them. I'm going to reshare my screen. Spark. You able to see my screen again?
Yeah.
All right. So now I want to go to my add asset and I want to say that, hey, I want to add a sequence, a texture sequence, animation sequence. I want to add an animation sequence. This is similar to texture sequence. This is also similar to importing multiple textures at the same time when we are assigning to a material. But let's be a safe side, animation sequence, we add it. It will give you a animation sequence here. We say like, hey, firework underscore sequence. Okay. Now, these are the properties here. We want to add some properties. So new texture and go to downloads. And then this is the things that we just brought it from there. And just select all. Make sure the naming that is done is always from 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. If you do it from 1, 2, 3 like that, it is going to be confused with 11, 12, like, because that also start with 1. So if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and then 11, so after 1 it's going to take around is 11, not 2. Yeah, so you always do 0, 0 as like this. I'm going to select all of these, open. As I told you, 20 frames will be counted. So this is 20 frames. This is going to take a while, maybe a second or two. What kind of laptops are you guys using? Use Windows or MacBooks?
Windows.
Okay. So my sequence, as I added these frames, these are 1 to 1 to 21. These are added here in the texture part. All right, the texture part. This is the frame 1 to 21.
1 to 20.
It shows 7.8 MB, which is not recommended. So what I would do is that I would compress it further. And there are some external tools to do that. I use Crushy. Crushy is a wonderful tool that I use to do that. Maybe that one I will explain in your next lecture. But how to make this animation? Let's go with this.
Yeah.
I usually put my compression to none when I don't want to use it because it just eats up my RAM. So I just put it on none. Then let's say my background is that I want to change. So my image, instead of image, I want to give it to my frame firework sequence. So my background should be my firework sequence. Yep.
Yep.
So, yep. Anybody else? Any doubts? Any questions for me? Well, this is going to be your homework. If no questions, then you have to create a filter where you can teleport yourself into 5 favorite places in India. For example, right now I'm teleported in Varanasi. What is this place, Divya?
It's in Gandhinagar. It's Akshardham.
Akshardham. Okay. So right now I'm in Akshardham. Okay. Yeah. So you have to teleport yourself into 5 different places in India. And try to play with. So I just told you image and GIF. It was not part of today, but now I've told you, so you have to work on it. You can think about hair color or skin color, not necessarily, but just take this in picture that you have to create and teleport yourself into 5 different places. Click on the screen, slowly fade in or fade out. I don't know. I think we are getting late today, else I would have taught you the interactions as well, like how to kind of change one background to other background. Um, okay, so your do this assignment. Maybe interaction will add next time, but you should be able to be ready with 5 such different images that you can teleport yourself, in a different space. So I'm gonna like check this one. So our next class structure would be like this. We will be discussing the assignment that we have done today. We'll be discussing any doubts that you had in the previous lecture, like the Liana Toki one, the video, because those doubts would be discussed today. But since most of you could not make sense of it, but that's okay. We can discuss those things in the next lecture. So um, let's keep things simple. I was supposed to give you to also watch the recording number 2 for before you come to the next session. But I think let's go with this one. Like let's remember, let's prepare what we know first, and then we'll go jump ahead. There's no point of doing hurry if we don't get what we actually have done yet so far. So let's go with the previous recording. We'll discuss that into the next lecture. Any doubts you have? If you have less doubts, we'll be moving forward. If you have doubts, we'll be discussing those first. And this assignment. So I want to see everybody do this assignment. And I want to show me your files. You can share your screens. So be ready with everything. That next session is going to be interactive. So you can ask your doubts. Yeah. If not any questions, we can probably end the session for today. And yeah. All right. Let me know on the group if you have doubts. You're welcome. You're most welcome. I'm happy to be a part of it as well. I was super excited. I was like, since morning, I was like, okay, when it's going to be 7:30, and I came 5 minutes ago. I joined the session 7:25. Like, couldn't hold it. So ask away your questions in the group as well, because I think a lot of people maybe did not join this today, but when they see you working, when they see that okay, you learn something, and then you're talking about it, they'll probably feel the fear of missing out, the FOMO thing. It's real. So try to kind of post your doubts into the group, and I'll sure them like help you out while you're working. Meanwhile, in the week, you could post those in the group, and I'll make sure whenever I have time, reply you and share some help. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next session.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye, guys. Bye. Hey, Edgar. Hey, Edgar.